So we're here. We're on the final core of Monster. It's Romania Black. We're on episode 63 of Monster. Yes, this is the 12 episode countdown. We're in the final core of the long-running series Monster, and I don't know what to expect at this point, because the last episode, which was seemingly set up as a transition episode, went in 1,000 directions I did not see coming. Tenma got hit by a car, met a new man, had an amazing encounter, and learned some expositional things from this man. Then that man went and died, and now we don't know what's going on. And meanwhile, we don't know what's happening with Nina. She's just discovered that the one guy, Peter, is who she's been looking for. He's on the screen. Don't know about Dieter. Don't know about Lunge and Lipsky. Don't know about Eva. Don't know about Johan. Don't know about Grim or anybody else. It's just all up in the air. And we have 12 episodes to round out this entire series. I am concerned. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm really excited, but at this point, the comments that I've received are all about Martin and how he's an amazing character, and I full-heartedly agree. I miss him. I can't believe that Milan is dead too. So it's just like, if you have an M name, you're just not gonna work here, right? Which Richard won't either. I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, characters are dying left and right, and Tenma is still after Johan, and what do we do about that? So, oh my gosh, y'all. But I'm really excited for the rest of Monster. I'm terrified that I feel like we're at the point we have to start getting answers, but then I'm like, what is not going to be answered? What's going to end up happening? Like, we only have 12 episodes. Stuff's going to have to get real. So I dressed for the occasion. I was like, I'm ready for whatever Monster is going to dole out. So before we start, I want to give a special shout out over to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon. To you all guys who all support me, not only in getting the manga, which I'm sure I'll have to review volume 8 here soon, but you guys not only help me get the manga for Monster, which I have all the volumes now. I'm so excited. I love Urasawa's artwork. It's great. But you guys help me out in a lot of other ways as well. So special thanks to Anthony for getting me the episodes themselves, but also to Alex Cornejo, to Anna, to Anime Annie, to Be Happy, to Dana, to Destiny Marie, as well as to Danger Zone, to Edgar, to Eric, to Lyndon, to Loisaji, to Kiri, to Matthew Palfinier, to Shimoyama, to Sunspots, to Trails, and to Translucent Men. Thank you all so very much for all of your support. I really appreciate it. All of my love. So yeah, I don't exactly know what's going to happen this episode, but I don't have any other comments, so everybody's being quiet, so that's usually not a good sign. Or is it? Ha ha! So we're going to dive into episode 63 of Monster, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Well, that was a very interesting transitional episode. I can't believe. Oh, thank God they gave us that flashback, because I forgot. I was like, Egon, that's a funny name. Weissbach, that's a funny name. He was the detective from the beginning of the series, like episode 2 and 3, which has been like over a year since I've watched those episodes, because I haven't rewatched anything. So I was like, holy shit. Wow, I forgot that he was even in this story. Crazy talk. Man, how cool is it that we're bringing back a character like Weissbach at this point in the story to have relevance and talk about Johan and Rudy and everything, and bringing together. So we know that what Reichwein's been doing, and now we have Rudy and we have Weissbach that are seemingly believing that something's going to go down in Frankfurt, because Nina's going there, Tenma's going there, Eva's going there, everybody's going to Frankfurt. Everything's going down in Frankfurt, Germany. What do we do? But oh my God. Also, it did not dawn on me that the guy that Milan, they didn't know who Milan was targeting. That, I don't know how to feel about that, because on the one hand, I'm like, damn it, Milan, if you had just gone a few steps further, you probably could have caught up with him, and then it would have been known. But I think it's kind of one of those like blessings in disguise, because while the police force they can't figure out who is being targeted by this random dentist that they don't know who he has ties to because of that. Now, if they go to his house in the redeveloped area and they find his like wall of pictures of Peter, then I think it'll be pretty obvious who he was going after. But I would imagine after the family figures out that he's dead and is wanted in this case, then they're going to take those pictures down ASAP and burn them. Like, they will, to leave to where they can't find him. And that report on him, they'll probably get rid of as well. Or Tenma will take the report with him. I'm assuming Tenma took the report with him and left, and then they'll just burn the pictures if Tenma didn't do it for them. So I'm hoping that's the case, so they don't hurt the family and the kids. I'm hoping that is the case, and that the family can just be like, we had no clue he was like this. Oh, no, he had no tendencies. No. So I think that that is a blessing in disguise, and plus, it keeps the police from interfering if Nina or Tenma try to confront Peter and get information. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, you don't want the police to get involved, because then Nina and them and us, the audience, can't find out the info. But then on the other hand, you kind of want, Lunge to be involved, but Lunge's acting as a free agent. I'm sure Lunge's already figured all this out, and I wouldn't be surprised if Lunge finds Peter before anybody else. If Lunge just shows up and he's like, hey, Peter, forget them, I'm the one we're going to talk about, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I feel like Lunge is just going to come in and be like, I know all of the things, and we're like, what do we do with that? But, so I guess it is a blessing in disguise. And then we have Weissbach, who's retiring, and is back on the case. Oh, Egon Weissbach. Oh my God. From the North Rhine-Westphalia police. I can't believe we're calling back to him from the start. Can you believe that? Oh my God. So this is interesting. This episode is very interesting. There's no Tenma. There is traces of Johan. But there's no Tenma. Nothing like that. No Nina, no Lunge. It's mainly just about Rudy and this guy Weissbach confronting the killers that Johan has kind of set loose in this area. And we need to talk about Johan and that involved in all of this. So, I'm glad that Weissbach at this point has Rudy alongside him, so that maybe the two of them won't die. I was wondering if it was going to be one of those scenarios, kind of like Martin, where if you just left, you would be fine. Like Milan. We just had in the last episode, Milan, Tenma was like, if you could just let it go, don't pursue this, you can be fine and be with your family. And Milan couldn't do it, and he ended up getting killed. And here, we have Weissbach, who I was like, he's this close to retiring. If he just retires and leaves it alone, he can live this happy life, but he can't do it, He can't just let the justice go unserved, and so he goes back. So I was afraid, before Rudy showed up, that Weissbach was going to end up like Milan and end up dead. But now that Rudy's there, I'm like, okay, maybe we're okay. But damn it! I have to say, Rudy is an underrated character in this series. I respect and love Rudy so much, because it's just the resting bitch face he has with every criminal he's interviewing. He's just like, okay, next. Okay. All right. Which explains why when Nina was like strangling him, he acted like it was no big deal. He's like, oh, this is a normal Tuesday for me. Glad to help. I'm like, oh, Rudy. Some of the facial expressions he has throughout this series are unintentionally hilarious, and I'm living for them. It's just great. So this guy that is a suspect for the Dusseldorf murders that could possibly clear Tenma's name is the guy that we have. I like this episode's called Unrelated Murders, they're all connecting the dots. At this point, it's like a weird game that Johan's playing to see if Rudy and the others can notice and catch up. And it's so bizarre. But the fact that this guy has known Johan since they escaped the hospital all those years ago is wild to me. And the fact that Johan caught back up with him and influenced him again with the banker. Because here's the crazy thing. Johan, back, years and years ago, he offered validation to what this guy was thinking, saying, yes, these people are worthless. They don't deserve to be here. They're ants that could just be gone off the face of the earth, and you can get rid of them. Which, granted, There are some asshole people in this world that do some really shitty things. But like him taking out the cigarettes in a no smoking area, is that warranting of death? No. The guy that kicked the dog, yeah, he was an asshole and he deserved to be kicked back because that dog didn't do anything. He had no right abusing that animal. But is it worth death? How do you equate that? How do you justify that, right? The guy that was just, a woman that was having, it sucks they were having sex in the back of his taxi cab. How rude and inappropriate, but was it worth killing someone over? No, nothing he really describes warrants death. Like maybe, get out of my car, or I'm not, you're not going to get out of here without, or like kicking them out without giving them their purse back or something. I don't know, but it doesn't equate to taking their life, But Johan giving him that validation as a child and then unleashing him, saying it's okay if this kid that seems to be this pure little vessel says it's all right for me to do all these things, that's all the validation I need. Cool. And then for that kid to come back as an adult and want him to kill this specific person that the driver doesn't necessarily have a beef with, but because it's Johan asking him, who validated him all those years ago, he feels like, oh, well, if he says he's a bad person, then he must be a bad person. And the fact that it was the names in the sandbox, like regardless, we talk about vampires, we talk about aliens, we talk about like these kids that seem like angels, but regardless, all these unknown inhuman factors, the connection is all the names. It all goes back to the damn names. And it doesn't matter what that person did. It doesn't matter who that person was. That's kind of the thing that's crazy, is that in each of these scenarios, the murders don't match the trajectory of what these killers have been doing. Like you have the one guy that was killing the virgins, that was a vampire. And then you have the one guy that was killing because the aliens told him to do it in this one section. And you have this guy killing people that are worthless to him. All three of the murderers, rule of three, again, all three of them, they all end up attacking someone different, not because they match up with what aligns with their moral code or anything like that, but just because of their name. Like, Johan doesn't tell them anything about them, like who they are, what their backstory is, anything. He just writes their name down. And because of that label, that's why they're attacked, and because Johan wrote it down. Like that symbolically, we've been talking about names and their importance and how names are a label that have so much power, even if they don't properly represent us. That connects to these murders happening, even though they don't represent the clientele that these other killers have been killing the whole time. It's crazy! And keep Johan away from a damn park! Shouldn't he have a restraining order by now? He can't be near children, can't be near sandboxes, can't be near forests. Like, get this guy away from everything. And we'll talk about Johan here in a second, but this guy, the main guy here that was charged, he is creepy. Like, Urasawa does, like, little things, like, small little gestures, like the way his mouth ticks and, like, the crazy look in his eye. And the thing about it is, when he's just standing there, and when he's initially talking to them, he doesn't seem crazy. He doesn't seem unhinged. He just seems quiet and normal. And then the more you talk to him, the more you're like, oh, something is not quite aligning here like it should be. Oh, it was the whole train scene was very creepy. And the fact that Weissbach remembers back with the twins, all of that, it's crazy. When he said, I won't tell you, it gave me Eva, but I've said Eva 2.0 because it made me think of when they're like, Eva, you'll confess for Tinma's sake, right? She was like, no. Gave me that vibe. But yeah, just like the little mannerisms, like the fact that he gets so upset when he brings out the cigarettes and says that he'll kill you if you do it again. I was expecting Weissbach to almost push it to the point where he would do something, but Weissbach's like, I'm close to retirement. I'm not going to do that. It's fine. Man, it's crazy, y'all. And then he's like, yep, I was told in the park that I could do it. It's insane. And then he just couldn't let it go. He remembered back that day, the twins, and he goes back. And the fact that it was 11 years ago and he remembered, and he's tied it to Tinma's case. So of course, Rudy would be invested because Rudy wants to clear Tinma's name too. So I don't know. I don't know at this point if Johan is using these murders to lead them to help. I don't know if Johan wants Tinma's name to be cleared or what the case is. Johan is very curious because these last few episodes, we've learned more about Johan. He's developed into a more sympathetic character in my eyes. But then we get to an episode like this, and it reminds you that, well, wait a minute. It's like you want to think for a second that Johan's sympathetic, but then he does these things where he just writes names in the sandbox, and these people go and murder them. And I know there's an argument saying, well, Johan didn't murder them. These people murdered him. All he did was write a name in the sandbox. But I'm like, but they're people that Johan has to know are killers or latent killers. And in the driver's case, he has a history with them. And so if Johan didn't want those people to die, just don't write the names in the sandbox and leave them alone, you know? And so it's like, it's almost like Johan, I don't know how to feel, because on the one hand, it's like you want to feel a little sympathy for Johan because you can kind of see where things have been so messed up for him. But then on the other hand, I'm like, you're not directly killing, but you are responsible for these murders by putting these names out there for these people. And I know that there's an argument saying, well, but Johan just put the name there. He didn't actually kill them. I'm like, but he didn't have to put the name out there. And he didn't have to do it in front of people who are murderers that he has to know is a murderer, right? There's something there, right? And it is this weird line that prevents you from totally absolving guilt from Johan, right? Because at the end of the day, then something like this happens, and you're like, well, these people died because you wrote this name in the sandbox. Like, it's so bizarre. And I don't know if these killers are people that are like, kind of like the children that went to the seminars that are subjective. Like, you know how people are subjective to hypnosis, and they're more like likely to be hypnotized, kind of like Nina is. I don't know if they're people like that are susceptible to it or what, but it doesn't improve my opinions of Johan when you find out that he's been basically enlisting these killers to do these murders. Like, for what means? If he's trying to gather everybody to Frankfurt for whatever reason, like, could you find a better way to do it? I don't know. I'm just like, it's wild. I just don't know what to think about it. But yeah, old Rudy in the prisons, from various different prisons, with the vampire. The one vampire guy kind of looks like Lunge, and talking about 3 months ago. So yeah, these are all recent. The one with the girl that, you know, was recently killed that looks kind of like Nina, which is super creepy, and she's 21, just like Nina, is from 3 months ago. So this is fairly recent, right? Like, why would Johan have targeted her? Why did he care? Unless it was to, like, just plant this random clue to, like, lure them there. And then the fact that we talk about the guy, Dinger, he said the aftertaste from that murder was really bad. And this guy says the exact same thing. That is creepy. That is so creepy because they're not related in, like, the turn of phrase, right? But he says, I found a real vampire, which is terrifying, right? He just wrote the girl's name in the sandbox with a stick, and I just carried it out. Then you have a different prison where you have, okay, so I can't wrap my head around it. You had a murder of Eric Klimper 4 months ago. So right before that was not near where your other missions were. And he's like, was it a message from the aliens? Did they change your mind and make you kill people in Frankfurt, or were there different reasons? So then we find out that the Klimper guy was from East Berlin. So I don't know why did he kill the girl that looks like Nina? That doesn't make sense. Unless 3 months ago, the girl that looked like Nina, did he steal her clothes to pose as her in Prague? Did he have her killed by the guy to take her clothing and go pose as her in Prague? Is that why she was killed 3 months ago? Because that would kind of line up with 3 months ago Nina and Dieter being there. So is that why? Did he do that to take her clothes and he had her killed for that reason? And then the guy trafficking kids and sending them to families from the east to west side of Germany, he might have had ties to Kinderheim and could have had ties to Johan's past, and that's why he had to go. And then the girl had to go because she just happened to fit the size and frame that Johan needed to pose as Anna in Prague. But then the banker, I'm still curious about the whole banking thing, because I'm still curious about the whole banking thing, because we know that Schubert was involved in that, but we don't exactly know what has Johan been doing with the funds. Why is there this banking stuff going on? I feel like all of that's going to come out at the end. Like, what is Johan doing with, like, the banker and everything, and how does that work? Where is the money going to? Is he leaving a lump sum of money for Nina if he dies? Like, what is he gonna, like, try to make himself out like this Robin Hood figure at the very end? Like, what are we doing? Why is that happening? But then the second guy, the guy with the glasses, reminds me of the big bulky guy that Rudy saw at the very beginning of the series. He reminds me a lot of him, the one that stabbed the pencil in his head, that was freaky as shit. He says he met with the real aliens. There was an alien standing in front of me. If I were Rudy and I was seeing all of these murders connecting, I would be pooping my pants. I would be like, I need to step out for a moment. I would have chills. I would be freaking out, because that is the trippiest thing, right? And he wrote the words in the sandbox for me. And Rudy's like, the hell? He's like, I wish you could taste it as well. And it's this idea of taste. This aftertaste is like, that one left a bad taste in my mouth. I wish you could taste it as well. What is this deal with the sensory? What is the sensory of taste and sight and smell? What is up with that? That's so bizarre to me that they all talk about tasting things. The fudge. And then we have Weissbach that's about to retire, but he's like, not going down until I solve this last crime. And they talk about getting a drink and stuff. What's interesting is talking about drinks and stuff. We've talked about food and camaraderie and the idea of eating meals with people, and that's a form of communication. And when you eat meals with others, you form these bonds. There's kind of like a warped and twisted message of that in this episode, where all these killers are talking about like a bad aftertaste of the murders. There's something connecting there that's interesting, and I like it, but it's just like, what the fudge? And then Rudy in his dang green suit and his yellow tie. And I like that the Digger guy doesn't want to talk to Rudy. Like, he doesn't want to talk to him. I find that very fascinating. He was so eager to talk to them, but then he doesn't want to say a word to him, which is interesting to me. And then Inspector Weissbach and him. I love they finally talk, and they're like, hey, I know the stuff about the twins. You're trying to clear Timma. Let's work together on this. I'm like, yes, please. And they go back to interview him. He says there was a child who was like a monster. Craziness, right? Insanity. A child who was like a monster. Oh my God. And then we're going back to this, the child who is a monster, and it's Johan. And Rudy's like, I want to know everything that's going on here. And then they break it down with him to be like, did you listen to him? I like he doesn't want to answer the question. And that's when he brings up that Johan, he was scum to Johan. And he wrote his name in the sandbox. I have to kill the man with this name. There are no needs for words. We all understood these people are worthless. It's so bizarre. Like, that face he makes at the very end is the most terrifying thing. It is creepy as hell. But that's so weird. It's like Johan is this ringleader of all this chaos and like demonic energy that you have these people, these murderers, and they all like come to Johan and view him as like this beacon of light to them, which is the creepiest thing. It makes him like Lucifer, right? Like the devil. But there's like a part of me that wants to empathize with Johan, because I realize his upbringing and his birth and him like trying to reconcile with his father and everything. Like, there is stuff there that is worth empathizing, but then you get to this shit and you're like, but why are you doing this? If you don't want to lead these people, why are you encouraging them? And it's just like, it's like chaos. He's like, well, I'm just putting names in the sand and they'll do whatever they want to. And I'm like, but you don't have to write names in the sand. Stop it. Just stop doing it. Stop telling these kids to jump off buildings, Johan. Stop writing people's names in the sand. You're encouraging this behavior. is the weirdest thing to me. And I don't know what to make of it, but I'm like, why are you doing this? It's just terrifying. So, oh my God. And that's when Rudy is like, okay, they're all ordered by the same person to kill their targets. And using these serial killers, the meaning of the murders became harder to spot. And he's like, the meaning? And then Weissbach's like, tell me. And he's like, Nina and Tinma are coming to Frankfurt. They're coming here. And it's Johan. Uh-huh. And then they're trying to start something in Frankfurt. So, Johan, it's like, what is Johan going to do? Johan's there in Frankfurt. Nina and Tinma are coming for them. Nobody realizes that Eva's coming there as well to try to kill him. I'm like, Lunge's off somewhere interviewing and piecing together everything. It's just like, ugh. The bank statement stuff with Schubert, I still want to know by the end of the series, like, what all that was about. We've had hints and clues with it, but I want it to all come together. But everything's going down in Frankfurt, supposedly. So we think. Oh my God. Ugh. Oh my gosh. So this episode was really good. I don't have that much else to talk about with this episode because it was pretty cut and dry. Also, I'm nursing a cold, so I'm just getting better from it. So if you'll notice, I'm a bit sniffly. So I will probably take this time to try to get better. But I feel bad the discussion's not that long. This is probably one of the shortest discussions. But this episode went by like that. It was done and over with. And I was like, what the fudge? So this definitely felt like a streamlined setup episode to start us off, to get us set up that Rudy is in Frankfurt. They're piecing together that Johan's there, and these murders are all connecting. It's like, why? But I am very nervous for this last core of episodes, and I don't know why. It's all setting up for this big ending, and I'm like, how do you end Monster? How do you end this story that's been going on for so long? I don't know. But I'm sorry the discussion isn't longer, but I'm not sure what else to discuss. So I'm just very excited for next week. We'll see how it goes. But I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below. So I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Monster. Bye.